to the Roda Team podcast, where we explore the slow life, the good life, and Central Coast real estate. I'm your host, Heather Roda. We hope you enjoy this episode.
Hi everyone, Serena Roda with the Roda Team of Platinum Properties, here with our episode of the Roda Team Real Estate Podcast today. I'm here today with Loreli Cappel, a native to the Central Coast of California, a graduate of Atascadero High School and Cal Poly. She's also a wife and mother of two, so busy lady. Currently, she is the Deputy Director of Economic and Community Development for the City of Atascadero. And before we dive into our topics today, I did want to ask a few questions of Lori, just for fun. The first one is, being a native of the Central Coast of California, do you have a favorite childhood story or memory?
Yes, I would say my younger years, my stepfather just took me all over climbing peaks, exploring. So I'm definitely an explorer and have a passion for all of our natural resources here. But just climbing all the peaks of the Seven Sisters and running around, exploring new little corners is definitely it. It has a huge place in my heart, and I'm always still looking for something. And I'm surprised that there's always something that I haven't seen or heard of from some other local or a visitor even that has said, you've got to try this if you haven't. So I would definitely say exploring.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And do you have a favorite hike that you go on locally?
We just recently just discovered Black Hill over in Morro Bay. You have like a full panoramic of the estuary from the top. It's right by the golf course. You're like 5 minutes from fish and chips. It's stunning, and you could just sit there for hours. And for some reason, there's this microclimate that's just beautiful. So you get the sun, you get the estuary, you get the beach, and it's just right there in our backyard, 15 minutes from Atascadero. So.
Sounds like a perfect spot to be.
Yeah.
And then with your position coming on with the City of Atascadero, you brought about 20 years of experience of community planning to that position. In our conversations, you have mentioned that you're loving this transition. Over the years, have you had a favorite job that you've held?
I will honestly say, and this isn't to win brownie points with my new organization, but I will definitely say working for the City of Atascadero has been a total delightful surprise and is hands down the most exciting and fun opportunity I've had. That sounds like it's scripted, but I truly mean it. I've been a server, I've been a consultant, I've gone in nonprofit, and then this transition to the public sector was really a big leap for me because I didn't know what to expect, and I thought it might be slow paced, and government moves at a certain speed, so I thought I might be impatient. But honestly, it is so rewarding because I think public service and working with people to resolve issues is something that I've always been really passionate. I'm that person who likes to untangle the necklace in the drawer and we'll sit there with a toothpick undoing it or getting the lint off the sweater. But the funny part is there's never a dull moment. It goes very quickly actually behind the scenes, but it's all in the name of creating transparency for the people, the residents of the community, which I am one. I'm only a year and a half into this position, and every day I cannot wait to get out of bed to start my to-do list, which sounds really nerdy, but I love it. I really love it. It's exciting and challenging.
That's awesome that you're enjoying what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I was just going to have you also just kind of share some of the background about your career path and how you ended up in the position that you're in right now.
Sure. Yeah. So we'll go back to Atascadero High School. My dad was an engineer. He worked for Diablo for 25 or so years, and he operated and was a foreman of the plant. So I thought engineering would be my strength too, and I went into engineering at Cal Poly for 3 years. Thought I would be in civil and I'd be designing glorious bridges. And then I found that socially I might not have been the perfect fit. So I found this major that was kind of obscure called City and Regional Planning, and I laugh now because very few children grow up and say, Mom, Dad, I want to be a city and regional planner when I grow up. But it was actually really, really interesting, and it still had the artistic creative side. I was making models, understanding land use patterns and transportation flows. So that was really, I fell in love with it. So I found my way into that major, changed majors, and after graduation, I spent 20 years in the private sector working for private consulting firms that consulted to government agencies. So I was no stranger to how governments work, and I specialized specifically in downtown revitalization and urban design. So that's light rail station transit-oriented development planning in the Bay Area, or over in commuter rail area plans in Peoria, Arizona. So a lot of West Coast and Western United States kind of consulting all over. I think I probably helped aid in the planning of like 40 or 50 downtowns, which
Amazing.
is really special to land in your hometown
Yeah.
and make, you know, the community and your downtown your priority. So very exciting. And then eventually got my way into the nonprofit sector, learning about economic development for the last 5 years with the Economic Vitality Corporation, a nonprofit, regional, looks at all the cities in the county and incorporated areas on how we grow jobs and balance our economy and proactively kind of groom our economy to be more profitable and prosperous. So
Oh, what?
Yeah.
I mean, great information to complement your position that you're in now.
Yeah.
To
it was
have that background knowledge and
yeah, it was a good step in the right direction, and it led me here. So
awesome. I'm glad. And I know, just in talking to you in the past, I could tell how excited you are about this position.
Yeah.
It's just fun to see someone excited about their job and what they're doing for the community.
Yeah, it's funny when you hear the saying that you roll your eyes at, that if you do what you love, you'll never have to work a day. Like, I just figured work was always hard because it's called work, and it really is. And then you find yourself, and it will always be challenging. I look forward to the challenges, but at this point in my career, every challenge and everything is so exciting. It really doesn't feel like work, which again sounds cheesy, I do know, but it's truly, like, I finally understand what that saying means. And I've seen people who have that glow when they talk about their work, but really, I really have it now.
Perfect.
Thanks.
Good spot for you. And then I just was also going to have you kind of break down what I know your position is very broad as far as your professional focus, but if you could kind of give an overview as to, you know, what are your goals and what is your position helping with the planning? How are you doing that?
Sure. So my position is two-part. So I am the Deputy Director of Economic Development and Community Development. Community development and planning is, I'm doing the long-range side of it. So we have something, in every community in California has a general plan. And that is your 20 to 25 year vision of what your city will be when it grows up or when it doesn't grow up. What do you want to be? What is your build out? How big can you get before you tip the scales? And how do you serve the people with police and fire and sewer and transportation and roads? So there's the big picture, like Google Earth 20,000 foot planning of how our community will be shaped and what decisions we have to make to get there, and what policies the council members and your decision makers have to put in place to get there. And the planners write all of those policies, and they design the land use plan, and then they write the zoning code, all those terms that, you know, people have to roll their eyes at because it seems complicated, but it's what helps us get to where we want to be. And if you don't know where you're going, you wake up somewhere else, right? So that's the planning part. I find that economic development, I had no idea, it's a pleasant surprise, but more than the other half of my job is air traffic controlling. So not just sitting back and saying, well, this is what we wanted to be, how are we going to get there? It's saying, well, if we really do need more jobs to balance our city, because right now we have been historically a bedroom community, we need to attract those jobs, or we need to go out and help our existing businesses grow. So how are we going to do that? Well, you can use data, you can use LinkedIn, you can see who are the Cal Poly graduates that loved it here, or who are the people that grew up here and that have that on their resume and LinkedIn that are now CEOs of companies elsewhere. And why haven't they decided to move back? We have new development happening in our town. Why aren't there offices or businesses filling up those spaces to help make our city whole, so we're not just all residential and lopsided and not as much business? How do we get to a place where the economics actually work and we have property tax and sales tax and business tax? So that's been pleasantly surprising. And sometimes I'm just working with people that I know from the community and friends that I knew from high school that are just starting their businesses, and there is nothing more rewarding than that. Like, it gives me chills every day, and I would die trying to just get them to the right person, find the right space for their business, find them the right person to help them with their social media if that's where they're struggling, or even connecting them to the Women's Business Center, say out of our Atascadero chamber, that helps find seed money or do business coaching to help them grow their business in a way that they want to grow it. So there's attraction, there's growth of business, and then there's just air traffic controlling and finding the right people to connect. So I feel like a bona fide matchmaker behind the scenes, but it's really, really rewarding, and just to see everybody thriving and then go around and patronizing all their businesses and supporting them in any way we can.
Yes.
Yeah.
Seeing the community that you grew up in grow and change. And I know that there are often challenges with growth and change, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about some of the economic challenges that you're seeing or that the community's seeing?
Sure, yeah, and these are things that everybody who lives here has experienced, but it's the affordability factor. Our county, we're an $18 billion economy right now in San Luis Obispo County, and that's made up of certain industry sectors like construction and design and energy like Diablo and tech. We have a lot of tech companies coming, so those are just three of their pillars. So when one of those is gonna tumble or end, when Diablo comes to an end, you have to kind of think about proactively, what can we be doing to get people who are making $157,000 a year average out at Diablo? What are we gonna do to offset that fact that those people have budgets and spending allowances that are way higher than some of the other people? They're the ones buying new cars or leasing new cars, they're putting new tires on their cars, they're going out to dinner 4 times a week instead of 2 times a week, or the Taco Bell after soccer with some of us, you know, whatever that is. So that is a big challenge because we do need to keep a steady stream of high wage jobs coming to the Central Coast. We are halfway between Los Angeles and San Francisco, and there are very high paying jobs there. We are kind of insulated here, which is not a bad thing. When the economy changes and shifts, we seem to be a little bit more buffered from some of those extremes. But what really that translates is we're on the Central Coast, which is highly desirable, and the prices of housing do keep going up. And they probably will always hold pretty strong because it's where people love to live, and they visit it and they fall in love with it and they like to be there. But our people here on the Central Coast now, and the jobs that they are finding, they don't necessarily match the price of housing. So that is just a systemic challenge with growth that we'll always face. And how we can do that is, sure, build more inventory, get some more housing, allow accessory dwelling units on the back of already developed houses, get some more opportunities so that young people can start in smaller homes and grow into those, where older people who now own the larger homes are going to retire and move into more assisted living. Get that continuum going. Right now we have a lot of single family residential and over inventory of it, and we need more housing products and types, I think, to kind of help with that affordability continuum from I just moved out of college and got my first job to I'm having children to I'm getting older, my kids have left the nest, I don't need as much space, I need more support and help. So that's a big picture challenge. Other than that, we have growing pains all the time just in our little downtown in Atascadero of where's everybody going to park when that new development comes in, and how are you going to solve that? And we're working on those things too. So all that stuff.
So kind of the typical challenges that the economy can face, but we also, living here, I would see that there are advantages to the economy that we have here. Can you talk a little bit about those?
Yes, so I would say that one of the best things that we can tell somebody who's thinking about moving their business or coming to the area is we have a very talented and highly educated population. I mean, with Cal Poly here, we have a talent pipeline coming out of Cal Poly that is, yes, other places have it, but people want to stay here, and it is a beautiful place to raise your family. The schools are all great, and so we have a captive audience. And we used to joke that we had a whole bunch of underemployed overachievers. So you have the architect who's working here, and to make ends meet, they're a barista in the evening or a bartender in the evening, but they're a working professional, and that is called underemployment. Like if you're not working to your degree, the level of your degree, you're underemployed, and they want to stay here, they're going to make it work. Or you have a lot of really entrepreneurial people who said, the company that I envision myself working for isn't here and doesn't exist, I'm going to open it. We have a high percentage, I think it's called a location quotient, where more than anywhere else in the nation, we have sole proprietors. So 1 or 2 person businesses right here on the Central Coast, and those people are either working quietly from their homes, they're in a co-working space, and we have a couple of those springing up in Atascadero and Paso. Some already exist in San Luis, and now even Napomo. So you've got these people that are doing really great things, kind of under the radar, making a lot of money for their families and for the Central Coast through business licenses and whatever they're selling or services they're providing. So that is a really big deal that we can keep to our size and have our scale and our peaceful community that's not skyscrapers and blowing up, and it's just we're always going to be able to keep our atmosphere that we fell in love with, our quality of life that everyone really likes. It will get busier as people discover us and as more people move here, but we're never going to be that community that runs into one another and you don't know where the city limits end and where another one begins, kind of like in Southern California when you're driving through Ventura, Oxnard, Camarillo, in whatever order. You don't know where the end is because they all blend together, but we have our geography and our topography and our beautiful landscapes really separate our communities by creeks and mountains and rivers, and that's just kind of who we are, and we'll always be like that. So I think it's a big asset.
So after you've identified now some challenges and the advantages, and I would assume, and maybe I shouldn't assume, but my understanding would be that you would take those challenges and the advantages and then try to come up with a plan. So as far as the plan that you're developing, could you maybe highlight a few of your initiatives or what your goals are with your plan?
I would love to. So as a new public servant, a year and a half into this position, our basically charge is drafted by the city council and our decision makers. So they have very clear direction, and so we have a 2021 to 2023 strategic plan. It's an action plan, and that is where our staff takes direction. So they've been very clear about what they want to see happen and how I'm supposed to use my time, and they're very exciting tasks that are very meaningful. But the number one thing I am charged with doing is supporting our local businesses, those who do want to grow and expand. How do we help them do that? And making sure that if they're struggling, there's a connection that can be made or something we can be doing behind the scenes. If they just need a bigger space to grow, if they need a subtenant because they need to make ends meet, like whatever that is we can do to help, we're doing that, or working with our friends at the chamber if it's more appropriate for them to do it. And the other part of that is how do we attract business? And my whole goal right now is to bring living wage jobs here, not from outside of the area necessarily, but helping the people that are here, that are working in the hills up in beautiful Atascadero. If they want to bring on 2 or 3 employees from their sole proprietorship, they have the ability to do that, and they know that they can do it in Atascadero and that they'll have the support, because there are other communities with a better ecosystem of entrepreneurship, and we want to grow our ecosystem. So we now have, I mentioned earlier, the Women's Business Center, which is powered by Mission Community Services Center, and they are connected to the Small Business Association and the Small Business Development Center, and they provide free business coaching, counseling, support, and even can access small grants to help them get their website set up and get something going. If there's infrastructure they need for working capital or actual physical things they need for their business, copiers, whatever that is, there are some ways they can connect them to some of those funding sources and grants. And for us, that's great. That's how you grow your people from the inside. And then we don't have to be traveling over the hill or to Paso, which is great. Some people want that, and I loved that for years.
Yeah.
But at this point in my career, I'm really appreciating my 7-minute commute from my home to City Hall. And I live in Atascadero and work in beautiful City Hall, so I love it. And there's a lot of people who after COVID have decided, I think I do want to work in the same community where my kids go to school, so I can pick them up afterwards, or they can walk to my office or something. It's just looking a little different. So
there's a huge advantage.
Yes, yeah. So quality jobs in Atascadero is kind of our first and foremost. But other than that, the big piece of it is there's a chicken and egg scenario with creating jobs. You talk to bigger businesses and you say, would you consider locating in Atascadero or Paso or North County? And they say, well, it doesn't feel like there's enough there. Like we are in, we're in LA, and we love that our employees have all these resources and can partner and walk or take light rail in, and you don't have those things. So we're trying to create a stronger nucleus for our community, and we're focusing a lot on our downtown and putting in public infrastructure projects. We're going to have the Downtown Infrastructure Enhancement Plan. We're bringing in and incentivizing new restaurants in downtown Atascadero, and we're seeing the fruits of those labors kind of come together. Of course, we would do nothing without private development, which the La Plaza building in Atascadero is stunning and matches the quality and beauty of our city hall. So as new development comes, trying to help them fill their spaces and find them tenants. So now we have more businesses to support the jobs, and you can't support the businesses if you don't have the jobs. So really working hard to bring our downtown into this activity center that's in scale with Atascadero, and making sure that the businesses see that and can actually be part of that, and making spaces for them and working with developers to make projects happen that can accommodate more offices and all of those great things. So it's a lot, but it's the gist of it.
But like I said, what a good feeling to see your community starting to be very vibrant.
Yeah.
And all new businesses coming to town, new restaurants, whatnot. And I definitely feel that there's more activity going on in Atascadero over even just the last couple of years probably since COVID, but it's definitely taken off in the last 6 months even.
There's a lot of momentum that started before I even got there and was stalled by COVID, but it's picking back up, and people are taking notice, and they see that it's pretty authentic. Genuine is the word that I think our visit Atascadero.com uses, which is simply genuine, and I love that because I think people like that small scale and genuine feel, that they know that there's enough to meet their needs and have the services there, but it doesn't feel overexploited or visited. But we are getting people to pay attention and love it and visit it, which keeps our businesses healthy and open, because you can't just survive just off of your own population. You do need that influx of tourism in some sense. And the Central Coast is a great place, and everybody, Paso's doing a great job of attracting those. San Luis is too, but now we're reaping the benefits of some of that and have our own festivals and events to bring some people into. So,
do you want to talk a little bit about this upcoming fall festival that you have going on?
Sure, yes. So on the 18th through the 20th of November is something called the Fall Festival. It's an event that the city is sponsoring, but it is a private event that came to us last year. And this year we're really getting more of the word out, because last year I think we had 25,000 people in our tiny little downtown. And it kind of felt like the Mid-State Fair rides, not the farm animals, rides, meets like a really great free festival of just concerts. And it's like 2 or 3 days of nonstop music. I mean, they even bring in the high school battle of the bands, but they really have a headliner, Pato Bonton, who's a reggae singer from England, and he's just great. If you know of him, he'll be playing on Sunday night. And last year it was such a huge hit. It was a surprise to us. We didn't know what to expect, but they brought in beer vendors. We had a beer garden. You brought so many families, and it was just like, you didn't have to wait for the rides, and it was a lot cheaper than the fair, but it was right here in front of our beautiful picturesque City Hall. And I just have to say, I was expecting to hear some people say, gosh, that was really hard to park, and gosh, that was a lot of people. But everyone I know said, thank you for doing something for the community and for our children and our families that felt very genuinely us. And of course we had visitors from all over too when they found out, and that was great, because I think there were the residents of the Central Coast mostly. But I thought that was really neat, because I feel like Terry Banish, our deputy city manager, who does all of our events, has done a very strategic job of bringing in events that are for our people, and not necessarily like Something Fest 2022 where we're attracting everyone. It's really, they're homegrown events that we hope to engage all of our local people, and we're going to do better about that, making sure all of our local merchants are involved, but really doing something great for our people first, and then hopefully we do have all those visitors. But everything from our Tamale Fest in January to our Hot El Camino nights in August, it's really for the families and the people of the Central Coast, so they can enjoy our little community and our downtown.
I love that it's family oriented.
Yeah.
You get to see, you see so many people when you're out and about.
It's pretty exciting.
And the pictures of the festival last year, the night pictures were stunning.
I know.
They're so pretty.
We've used we've had permissions to use some of them, and they're just, every time I get an opportunity in some of our promotional stuff, it's really neat to plug those in.
Very pretty.
Yeah. Yep. Ferris wheels in downtown, who knew?
Yeah. Well, and then the city hall building itself.
It's a beautiful backdrop.
It is.
And it's kind of like a stage. It's our community stage. We have all of the dancers out, it's pretty cool. And the choir from our high school and band, it's pretty neat. So.
Getting the whole community involved in it.
Absolutely.
Lori, why is it important for the community to do the economic development planning?
Yeah, so as I mentioned earlier with the high level planning, you have to actually be proactive. Things will come your way. Developers will come in and say, I bought a piece of property, I want to do something on it, and that's wonderful. But it is really interesting to meet your city goals by proactively working on things to support things and or incentivize certain projects if that will meet your goals. So economic development is a funny term and it doesn't mean a lot to everybody, but I like to explain it at the dinner table to like my mom and my grandma when my grandma was like, it's getting busy, roll up the drawbridge, we're already here, we have our houses, like why would we do it? And I have to tell her, well, grandma, thank you, I agree, I appreciate that, and we don't want it to change too much, but it has to change in some ways because this printing company that's been here forever, that's done our blueprints, is not going to be doing our blueprints for long, and blueprints have gone away. And so now in downtown Atascadero, in that same space or in another building just a couple blocks away, we have a company that does 3D printing, and we have 3D printers in all of our middle schools and high schools right now in our photo labs. So I have to get her thinking about the continuum of education and the talent pipeline and how we're going to not just build the buildings and be city planners, but think about who's going to fill those spaces in 20 years. Are those businesses going to be obsolete? Who's going to replace them? So while change is scary to a lot of people and you say, we don't want any more of this or that, it's just too much, that's okay. We want to keep the character, but there's a way to do that while not withering on the vine like a ghost town. If you stop investing, if people stop investing in your community and bringing new business ideas and you're not development friendly or economic development friendly, you're cutting yourself short of new investment and money that will flow into your community to pay for your parks and to pay for your new community center or your new safety center for your police and fire. So a healthy community has healthy economic development, and you see those results in the arts. People, if you're just always struggling to like keep up and stay afloat as a city, just to get those roads paved, which is a big challenge in Atascadero, where we've got a spaghetti map of roads. It is. It's like someone threw spaghetti against the wall, we always joke. But if you're always just trying to keep your head above water, you're not going to get to focus on some of the other things that matter a lot and show your culture. And I think art is a big piece of that, and that's like kind of an economic indicator. How healthy is your arts community? The Printery Foundation is working on restoring buildings, and they're doing that through donations, and they're going to be a really great venue for a playhouse or public arts. We know we've made it when we can not just pave our roads, we can bring in healthy businesses and have jobs for our students, but we can also have these amenities and this arts and culture and history. Then you've become a whole city. So economic development, in summary, isn't just creating jobs. It isn't just building homes. It's all of the things that make a community prosperous. So that's not just about money. It can really be about culture, but of course money helps and helps us, be able to spend in a way that is restoring our resources and paving our roads so people know it's a beautiful place to live and it's well cared for. So that's the big one. That's the long and short of grandma and mom dialogue at the Thanksgiving dinner table. Yeah. That's explanation. Well, and I did tell my grandma, going back to grandma, the only thing that matters to you, grandma, is it's really important that my 2 children have a place to work here and they see a future. How many of your students, how many of the kids, how many of the people that you know, did their kids go off to college and never found something that really worked for them? And they said, I might not meet someone, I won't find the right job, I can't get paid enough, and I won't be able to afford a house. So they stayed in San Diego after they went to San Diego State. And they moved to, I always use the example of Georgia. I said, Grandma, the reason I do economic development is so you don't have to fly to Georgia to see your great-grandchildren. That's far for you, and there's no direct flights. So we do this because now there are 3D printing companies that my son Drew learned how to 3D print in photo class, and now he can plug something in and work at this company that is manufacturing things that go all over the entire nation and world, specifically for Teslas. I mean, how cool is that, right in our own community? So.
And who would have known?
Yeah,
not many people know.
There are fascinating businesses here, and they came to us because they went to Cal Poly and fell in love with it, or they lived here and they always felt like they wanted to give back to the community, and they said, I do want to open my business specifically in Atascadero. Where can I do that? And that is like my favorite phone call. Yeah. Oh my gosh, hold on, I'll find you 40 places. Right. And then I call my realtor friends, and I go, what do you have? We need 1,100 square feet minimum, and it's got to have this kind of setup, and yeah.
So you have all the connections.
And making more, and I love to meet new people who can just be part of the network that makes our community so successful. So.
Well, maybe at this point then you could talk about your connection with SLO partners as well.
Yes. So prior to coming to the city, I'd been involved in the nonprofit sector, but one of the biggest things we had worked on at a countywide level is how do you create the talent pipeline so that the businesses here either can stay here or new businesses will actually make the decision to come here. There's a couple businesses I can just throw out that everyone might know or have heard about, but I'll start with Trust Automation. They do advanced manufacturing in our community, and they make parts that are for moon rovers. I mean, it's fascinating, and like semiconductors, and they have to have a clean room, and they have to have highly skilled talent in order to do that. If we aren't training our people today in high school or even elementary school for jobs of tomorrow, we won't be able to keep those companies here. They're gonna go whatever school is educating or has a talent pipeline that is gonna help people make semiconductors, they're gonna go there. And if that's Taiwan, that's probably where that company might end up going to. Fortunately, they're very passionate about staying here because they are from the Central Coast, the owners, and they're wonderful people. But I find it really interesting because it's not just there. It's ACI Jet Company, another fascinating company that's out by the airport in San Luis Obispo, and they have highly specialized people that are airframe and power plant mechanics that are the only ones licensed to work on aircraft. So they need to train that talent pipeline, and we don't have an education program here until recently that is meant specifically to build that stock of really great talent people. And those are high paying jobs. Yes. This is like, if you like to work on tractors and you're at a Templeton High School wrenching on things in the ag, department, you have a future in aviation if you want. You can be a mechanic, which might pay X, or you can be a ACI Jet employee, which probably pays Y. So it's just another opportunity. And so SLO Partners is out of the County Office of Education under the management of Superintendent Jim Brescia, and they are like this small group of people that's kind of interfaces with the private sector, and they go out and ask, what is your need? What are the skills that people are not coming out of school with? How do we help you grow? And how fast would you grow if you could have an unlimited amount of people? And if ACI Jet says, if you were to stand up an airframe and power plant mechanic program, we would hire every single graduate out of there up to like 50 a year. And that's about as many as you could probably train, I think, at a time with the FAA rules and stuff. So that is exactly what they did. They worked with Cuesta College. They created a mechanism for it. Cuesta is now hosting that. They're getting that program in place. So it took years. But now we have a talent pipeline for a company that services Bombardier jets here on the Central Coast, and American Airlines. They have their service hub out of San Luis Obispo Airport, so they will probably be needing these exact type of people. So it's just a really neat thing where you can have ticket to manufacturing, ticket to aviation. They have a ticket to tech where they did boot camps, and those are still running. Ticket to teach to get higher wages and higher skills to our elementary and preschool level teachers and daycare providers. So talent pipeline, how do we create it? How do we grow it? SLO Partners is a huge tool in that, and I would encourage any companies that are interested to kind of reach out and say, hey, we have a huge need, and I can put them in touch, or you can just go to slopartners.org online, and they can just interface with their entire team, and they'll see what can be done, if there's anything they can connect them to, or maybe look at a program or getting a cohort of companies together with the same needs. It's really exciting.
That's super exciting.
For our kids too, because they can see it. They're not just daycare providers now, they can actually see themselves being a preschool teacher and having the skills to move up and get benefits. And we want to grow that industry, because if you don't have childcare, everything we're talking about doesn't matter. Right. You're going to lose your workforce if they don't have some quality care for their children. So.
And how convenient if they're able to work in that community too, and be so close to their childcare.
That's really important too. And how cool to have, what if we were like the Central Coast communities that were best known for having quality childcare? That's actually a magnet for really quality jobs too. If you're up in the Bay Area and you're terrified to leave your kids at some place, daycare, and it's really hard to do it, and you're always on the wait list, and you're working from home until you can, with an infant, until you can find a daycare slot. And then heaven forbid you have twins, like one of the girls that works at the city, you have to wait for 2 slots at the same daycare to come available. it's really hard for someone to hold the first slot if you can't have a second. But if we had quality childcare ready to go, and companies could say, come to our county, come to our community, we have childcare, we have a place where you could live, I'll connect you to the realtor tomorrow. That is how you create a pipeline of people who are going to say, I'll go be the pediatrician down there. But it's hard to attract those high wage jobs. But if you say, I've got a home for you, or someone who can find it for you, if you have childcare for them, and those are the kind of things that people are looking for. And we have a job for your spouse. That's another piece. There's that disconnected spouse that's coming and following that person to the job. Those are the three things that people struggle with when they're trying to land a really good new hire from outside the area. So yeah,
you're filling in all those gaps.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope
great.
So, yeah.
Because I do know it's hard to recruit to this area. With my husband is in the medical profession, and it's really challenging for them. So to have those pieces would be perfect.
Yeah.
I think it would really complement or attract better candidates to the area.
Yeah.
Lori, I was wondering how our listeners could follow some of the planning process or stay up to date on what's currently going on. Is there a good location, whether on the internet or social media, for them to take a look at?
Sure. So for Atascadero, and specifically, we're revamping our website, so bear with us until early next year, but we're going to have a page that's dedicated specifically to economic development happenings and projects, specific big projects that everyone wants to know what's happening on that giant corner. I see dirt moving, all the way down to little bit new businesses that are coming, so that'll be big. Social media for now is the best way. We try and push out, hey, did you know that Chipotle is coming to Atascadero? Here's where you can find it, and here's you can tune in to our design review committee meeting coming up on this date. So I think social media is a good way for now. Some communities like Paso have an economic development newsletter that they push out monthly, and that's really fun. I love to read that, and I work very closely with Paso. We're actually teaming on a project right now, which is really fun. We've never co-managed a project over city boundaries, which is fabulous because the economic manager there for the city of Paso and I have become, good collaborators and friends. So that's been really great on projects like broadband, and how do we get internet fiber to all of our people, not just our little community and not just your little community, but to the North County in general, and what happens to the gap in between. Hey, let's pull in the county. So anyway, follow us on all that. We have a lot of stuff going on and posting about our broadband project amongst our cities, newsletters, website. That's probably the best way, and you can always call me. I love talking to people in the community when I get those emails or calls like, what's happening on the corner of such and such? I'm like, oh, you're gonna be so excited about this. We're getting a new, development called Del Rio Ranch, and this is what's envisioned. So stay tuned.
That's awesome. Yes, and stay tuned. That's a perfect segue into today. We're going to go ahead and conclude today's episode, and I want to thank you all for taking time out of your schedules to watch or listen to today's episode. I'm going to continue part 2 with Lori on some of the more specific developments and projects that are going on in the SLO region, North County, and Atascadero specifically in our next episode. So if you can, catch us next time on that episode. We'll see you then.
We hope you enjoyed this episode. Thank you for listening. We welcome your feedback in the comments, and you can also subscribe and follow us on social media at the Roda Team. We will leave you just as we greeted you with music by local musician Lee Angels of Stagecoach 3. Take it away, Lee.